Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jaya Kodanitai Maya Poshashi, Kodanitai Maya Poshashi, Kodanitai Jaya Maya Poshashi. Iskon Guru Vrinda ki jai, Prabhupada ki jai. Iskon Guru Vrinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. The fact is that people were wild about Prabhupada and ISKCON. So this is Giriraj Swami speaking. One night we showed slides of the Rath Yatra, in San Francisco, and the audience was going wild. In front of 10,000 people, Prabhupada announced that he will hold Jagannath Rath Yatra in Bombay, and everyone started to cheer and applaud. Hari Bo. Should do it in Las Mahego. Day after day, the Pandal festival was a success. Bombay's most important citizens came and were impressed. White-shirted businessmen and their well-groomed wives joined in the chanting. For hundreds of thousands of Bombay citizens, coming to the Cross Maiden to attend an evening Pandal program was easy enough. Some were intent on listening to the lecture and inquiring deeply into devotional service. Others came mostly to see the deity, take prasadam, or appreciate the kirtan. In any case, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada and the Hare Krishna devotees were a refreshing addition to the life of the city. It was the biggest public event in Bombay. Srila Prabhupada ki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading from the Srimad, which is the 6th canto, and the chapter is entitled I'm not sure. I'm usually asleep by now. Yeah. A battle between the demigods and Vritasura, who we've just heard can swallow the 3 worlds. That's chapter 10, okay, and it's text 1. As described in this chapter, after Indra obtained the body of Dadichi, a thunderbolt was prepared from Dadichi's bones, and a fight took place between Vritasura and the demigods. Following the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the demigods approached Dadichi Muni and begged for his body. Dadichi Muni, just to hear from the demigods about the principle of religion, jokingly refused to relinquish his body. But for higher purposes, he thereafter agreed to give it up. For after death, the body is usually eaten by low animals like dogs and jackals. Dadichi Muni first merged his gross body made of 5 elements into the original stock of 5 elements, and then engaged his soul at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus he gave up his gross body. With the help of Vishvakarma, the demigods then prepared a thunderbolt from Dadichi's bones. Armed with the thunderbolt weapon, they prepared themselves to fight and got up on the backs of elephants. At the end of Satya Yuga and the beginning of Treta Yuga, a great fight took place between the demigods and the asuras. Unable to tolerate the effulgence of the demigods, the asuras fled the battle, leaving Vritasura, their commander-in-chief, to fight for himself. Vritasura, however, seeing the demons fleeing, instructed them in the importance of fighting and dying in the battlefield. One who is victorious in battle gains material possessions, and one who dies in the battlefield attains a residence at once in the celestial heavens. In either way, the fighter benefits. Text 1. Number 40. 14. 4. Okay. Oh, yeah. And a very small one it is too. Translation. Sri Shukadeva Goswami said, after instructing Indra in this way, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, the cause of the cosmic manifestation, then and there disappeared from the presence of the onlooking demigods. O King Parikshit, following the Lord's instructions, the demigods approached Adichi, the son of Atava. He was very liberal, and when they begged him to give them his body, he at once partially agreed. However, just to hear religious instructions from them, he smiled and jokingly spoke as follows. O elevated demigods, at the time of death, severe, unbearable pain takes away the consciousness of all living entities who accepted material bodies. Do you know about this pain? Don't you know about this pain? In this material world, okay, text 4. Jivishn shunam jivanam jivishunam jivanam ata atma prasta ihepsita atma prasta ihepsita ka utsaheti ta tam datam ka utsaheta tam datam Bhikshamanaya Vishnave Bhikshamanaya Vishnave Jiji Vishnam Jivanam Atma Prashta Ihepshita Ka Utsaheta Tam Datum Bhikshamanaya Vishnave Jiji Vishnam Jivanam Atma Prashta Ihepshita Ka Utsaheta Tam Datum Bhikshamanaya Vishvane. Vishnam Jivanam Atma Prashta Ihepsita Ka Utsaheta Tam Datam Bhikshamanaya Vishnave Vishnam Jivana Prashta Ihepsita Ka Utsaheta Tam Datam Bhikshamanaya Vishnave. Jiji Vishnam Jivana Ihepsita Bhikshamanaya Vishnave. Ji Vishnam Vishnam. Aspiring to remain alive. Jivanam, of all living entities. Atma, the body. Prashta, very dear. Iha, here. Ipsita, desired. Kaha, who. Utsaheta, can bear. Tam, that body, datum, to deliver, Vikshamanaya, begging, Vishnave, even to Lord Vishnu. Translation: in this material world, every living entity is very much addicted to his material body, struggling to keep his body forever. Everyone tries to protect it by all means, even at the sacrifice of all of his possessions. Therefore, who would be prepared to deliver his body to anyone, even if it were demanded by Lord Vishnu? Responsively, please. In this material world, every living entity is very much addicted to his material body, struggling to keep his body forever. Everyone tries to protect it by all means, even at the sacrifice of all his possessions. Therefore, who would be prepared to deliver his body to anyone, even if it were demanded by Lord Vishnu? Prabhupada ki jai. It is said, Atmanam Savato Rakshat Tato Dhamam Tato Dhanam. One must protect his body by all means. Then he may protect his religious principles and thereafter his possessions. This is the natural desire of all living entities. No one wants to give up his body unless it is forcibly given away. Even though the demigods said that they were demanding Dadichi's body for their benefit in accordance with the order of Lord Vishnu, Dadichi superficially refused to give them his body. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swam Rupa Gadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhupada Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sari Gaura Bhaktarinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I read this last night in the Mahabharata. Lord Krishna strongly chastised his friends, saying, "My dear Arjuna, you speak self-righteously, but do you know the truth of morality? According to Shastra, it is highly virtuous to tell a lie for the purpose of saving a life, especially that of a king or a Brahmin. Lying is also meritorious when used to save one's wealth from danger or for obtaining a woman's hand in marriage. Indeed, even if truth is upheld at the cost of someone's life, it is the greatest untruth and unrighteousness." We just ran into this problem yesterday, didn't we? With the there's a certain limit to mundane morality, and then Krishna pushes the living entity beyond that to surrender to him as the highest principle. So in that story, Mahabharata, Krishna tells the story that one sage was approached by these dacoits, and they said, "Do you know where these people are?" And the sage said, "Yeah, they're hiding over there in the bush." So the dacoits went over, they took everything off them and killed them all. And when the sage died, he had to suffer in hell for many years because he told the truth. So from a moral point of view, it was perfectly right what he did. But there was a higher principle that he didn't understand. Niyamagraha means following rules and regulations fanatically, but not really aware of why. And the duality of Niyamagraha is rejecting rules and regulations and acting whimsically because you didn't understand why you're following the rules and regulations in the first place. So if you see sometimes someone is over the top with the rules and regulations, that's just the other side of being completely whimsical and throwing potatoes everywhere. So any questions or comments about that? I'll run through it again because it is interesting. Oh, you have one, yeah? Pancha for Prabhu. Oh, so you have a question. The only question he has is, where's the microphone? So why does Prabhupada use the word addicted to his material body? Why the word addicted? Generally, it's attached, isn't it? If someone's attached to something, but why addicted? What's the significance of using the word addicted? It has connotations of being more degraded than just being attached to something. If you're addicted to something, that's a little bit more serious. But what's associated with addiction?
There's sort of like some sense like a helplessness. You can't get out of this situation where you just need this external substance to try and satisfy you.
Yeah.
Whether
So it's like intoxication, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So somebody can be intoxicated. If somebody is intoxicated with the bodily conception, how would that affect how he behaved?
He would do everything to try and protect the body.
The person is very intoxicated. It's very hard to communicate to a person during a conversation with someone who's intoxicated. He's so locked into his own conception of what it is. Purpose, you're trying to get him to see reality from your point of view. So the intoxication closes down the ability to do that. It closes down empathy. It closes down the ability to see things from a different perspective. So from saying addicted to the body, you see all the different ramifications of what addiction means, And also addiction also implies, if someone is addicted and you just take it away, like if a person smoked all his life and you just take all the cigarettes off him, that can kill him because he's been so used, the system is so used to the addiction. So it's not going to be a quick fix. If someone's addicted to something, you can't just slap them in the face and say, right, forget that, because there'll be all kinds of withdrawal symptoms. So addiction means it's going to be a long-term process generally before the person dries out of the substance he's addicted to, And it can be even years later. You can give up the gross activity, but even years later, those samskaras are still there in the subconscious and they still play out. It takes a long, long time, And we've been addicted to the body for a long time, not just this body. But every time we get plopped into a material form, whatever it is, whatever species it is, then the default is protect this unit that I'm in, whether you're a cell or a slug or a ladybird or a bird or a lady, whatever it is you are, then you're locked in and the addiction is carrying on from previous lifetimes. And suddenly we're saying, oh, no, I'm a Hare Krishna now. I've shaved up. I've got my dhoti on. That's it. Everything should be fine now. But there's going to be a lot of default mechanisms playing out before you really do get on course. Takes a while. Param yoga, the supreme yoga process is that by which one, like a expert horseman trains a headstrong horse. He allows the horse to have its way for a moment and then gradually pulls on the reins to bring on to the desired path. Similarly, the supreme yoga process is that by which one carefully observes the desires and movements of the mind and gradually brings them under full control. The gradual process. Anybody, anything else on addicted?
It's a nice thing. Nice things that you brought up is when speaking about material body is a lot more than the body. That includes, like a few other identities that is related to your body. So like nationality, or gender, or your possessions, kind of extend itself. And all these principles applies, that people trying to really hold on to it by all means. It all starts, from attachment to the body, or, some sort of status as well. Status is like a really big thing that you can really hold on to it and try to protect it. And it becomes like a part of your identity or who you are.
Yeah.
And ultimately becoming Krishna conscious through pure devotee, like letting go all those identities, not just the body. It's like so many identities we pick up in this Facebook profile. It's another identity, Instagram account.
Yeah, and as you get older, you have to keep readjusting your ego, you know. You have the ego of a 5-year-old, then the ego of a 10-year-old, then the ego of a teenager, then the ego of a young man, then the ego of a middle-aged man. And then eventually you get the ego of an old man. And when I was a kid, I thought people were always old, that they were like that. They were born old. I didn't realize they'd been young, you know. I was thinking, that's unbelievable that that person was ever young. He seems to have completely forgotten any of his childhood proclivities. He's completely immersed now in being this old body with no remembrance at all, no trace of recollection of what he was like when he was young. Such a huge gap. I was trying to relate to them. I was thinking, we have absolutely nothing in common, you know. And then my mother broke it to me gently. No, he was a little baby like you. And he grew into this. And I was thinking, oh my God, I'm going to have to grow into one of them, one of those old, miserable, wrinkled, you know. I used to wonder why they're so miserable. A guy walked past once and I could hear the change in his pocket and he looked really sad. And I was thinking, why doesn't he just go and buy himself a Mars bar, for God's sake, you know? Get yourself together, you know? So, yeah, they were all, but then they get so locked into the identification of being the old person that they feel like they've never been anything else but old, you know? They just identify so much with that. So, I made a promise when I was a kid that I wasn't going to, my body was going to grow, but I wasn't going to grow old like that. Oh, there's a question online. Okay. Who from? That's Pip's mum. Can you be addicted to? Well, that's what we're trying to do, Andrea. Yeah, we're trying to be addicted to Krishna. It's just like, can you be addicted to something sweet? You can, but if you have jaundice, it doesn't taste sweet. So Krishna is the sweetest of the sweet, but he doesn't taste very sweet. When someone's telling you, "Hurry, Bol, it's 4 o'clock, Prabhu, time for a cold shower," then it's like, what was that about Krishna being sweet? He is very sweet and he is very addictive, but it's an acquired taste. It takes a little while to get addicted. I remember the first time I smoked a cigarette and I sucked in the smoke and then I blew it out immediately. And these girls were watching me and they were laughing like anything, you know. I was thinking, what's wrong with them, you know? And then someone says, you've got to breathe it in. I was thinking, breathe it in? What do you want to breathe it in for? And I felt like I was going to die, you know. So it takes a while to get addicted, you know, until you acquire the taste. I did get addicted eventually, you know, but luckily I became a Advait when I was 19, so I could give it up, you know. But that's what it does. Yeah, so Krishna is an acquired taste, but once you do get addicted, but the addiction stage is called Raganuga. So we're following, what's the stage before Raganuga? Vidhi Bhakti, isn't it? Vaidhi Bhakti. You're having to do because you have to do. And then you come into the stage where you're doing because you want to do. And then you're getting a taste. Then even if someone tried to stop you, you couldn't stop. You couldn't, even if we super glued your sleeping bag up, you'd find a way out at 4 o'clock in the morning. You'd rip your way out and run into the shower. Because you're Raganuga now. It's spontaneous. You cannot stop. And it just takes a while to get to that tipping point where 75% of the unwanted things have been removed from the heart. And so it's a bit of a grind in the Anata Nivritti stage because you're having to get rid of stuff. And I don't know if you've ever tried it. Sometimes when you get married and you move into a house, you'll notice you acquire a lot of stuff. And then you think, that's it. I've had enough. I'm just choking everything out. That's going. That's going. That's going. That's useless. I haven't used that for years. That's going. And you got this big heap and then you're looking at it and you're thinking, oh, I could use that. No, I could use that actually. No, I could use that. And you end up with like one thing, you know, it's a pair of socks with a hole in it. You think, oh, maybe I could just sew them up anyway, and then they get put back in, you know. So when you're doing an Anata Nivritti, what makes it a difficulty is they're not unwanted. The things aren't unwanted. You go to kick them out and you think, no, I had a bit of fun with that actually. Maybe I can check it out later on, you know, and then it goes back in. So that really slows the process down. That's why you have to be clear. The intelligence has to be very clear. Is it wanted? Is it going to be useful? Or is it going to be a hindrance? Useful, hindrance, useful, hindrance. And as you progress, hopefully, more and more things become a hindrance. And you start to reject them because you see that they're compromising things that you have now, which are useful, which are very useful for you. And it's kind of counterintuitive that the way we're tuned in is, if you're selfish, you can be happy because you'll get more than anybody else and you don't have to worry about anybody else. But the fact is that the most selfish people are the ones that suffer the most from depression. Depression is like an acute, advanced stage of selfishness. It's a total self-absorption, being worried about yourself and concerned about yourself. One of the easiest ways to give depression is just to go out and help people and become concerned with other people and worry about them. And then it shifts the emphasis off yourself. You don't have to worry about yourself anymore because you're worried about everybody else, you know. Imagine being on death ward and everyone's, doctor, and you're saying, I'll be with you in a minute, but I've just got this little splinter in the tip of my finger and it's really sore, you know, and the person's dying. You'd be thinking, well, forget that, you know, that's insignificant. And you're going over trying to help other people. So one of the side benefits of becoming more Krishna conscious is that you become more aware of how people are suffering. We had a woofer here a few weeks ago, and she said after we had these like forgiveness courses, she was revealing her mind, and she was saying that she's very good at the chit chat and playing the part, you know. So I was watching her; she was serving some people during the Holy Festival at the Straw Barn, you know, and she was really. And then as soon as the person turned their back, and she was chatting away, and as soon as they went, and she was actually really sad, you know. So as you become more spiritually evolved yourself, you become aware of how people are pretending that they're not suffering, but they're actually suffering like crazy, you know. And then you start to feel some compassion for them, and then that takes away your depression because you're not worrying about yourself anymore. You're worrying about them. You think, you know, I'm suffering. Look at these people. You know, they're going nowhere. You know. So this is an interesting statement. I wonder if anyone can say why this is an interesting statement. Struggling to keep his body forever. What does that imply? If you're struggling to keep something forever, what does that imply? It's like the classical tension that's there between the spiritual energy and the material energy.
It implies.
Zoom in camera 4.
It implies that we intrinsically know that we shouldn't be giving up the body.
Yeah.
That we're eternal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because our identity is placed here, then it's sort of.
Yeah. You know, I always remember we had this English teacher who was really unusual, Mr. Drury in Hillside. He said this thing to me once. It was like a bolt from heaven. You know, we're all in the class, and I don't think for most of us it registered at the time. It didn't register later on. But he said, "Can anyone imagine not existing?" And the room was like, he said, "No, it's impossible to, because our very nature is that we've always existed. You can't conceive of not existing. It's not within your. It can't really be within your experience because anything you're experiencing is confirming that you exist. And so it's such a threat on the soul when death looms, the dark shadow of death looms and puts this misconception on the soul that now it's going to not exist any longer. That is the most fearful thing, actually. Even more fearful than pain. At least with pain, you still exist. But to not exist anymore is the greatest threat to you, your spiritual nature, your eternal nature. So what is struggle, eh? Struggling to try and keep things together. It's like trying to make something on the beach, trying to make the sandcastle, and it's crumbling even as you're trying to make it. It's all falling apart. The teeth are falling out. My molars are rotting. Everything is sagging. There's not the same strength. Something else packs in. You know, the hearing's going now, the eyesight, everything's starting to fall apart. And the soul's like, no, we can get this together. Get some cream, rub the cream in. That'll get rid of the wrinkles. Have a facelift. And you end up with a dimple on your chin, which is your belly button. And go to the gym. Take these pills, they're brilliant. And you'll be fine, you know. Get a new car, you'll be brilliant, no problem, you know. And that's why in the In the subterranean heavenly planet, it's even worse because they've got these lakes of herbs and they bathe in them and they have no sign of aging at all. And then one day, they just go like that. They just die like that. There's no warning. They just get snuffed out in one go. Yes, Pip.
I wonder if you could just elaborate on even at the sacrifice of all his possessions in the purport there.
Sacrifice your what?
Struggling to keep his body forever, everyone tries to protect it by all means, even at the sacrifice of all his possessions. Is this at the sacrifice of all his possessions?
What's this meaning? Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? The sacrifice of all his possessions. Anyone like to shed some light on that? Or even yourself, Pep? He's struggling to keep his body forever, and everyone tries to do it, to protect it by all means, even at the sacrifice of all his possessions. Shishikonitai Maya Pashashiki Jai. Anyone, any ideas how we can understand that better?
One thing you already mentioned about, rubbing the creams and tablets and etc. They all cost money.
Oh,
and and it's like if you do have something more serious, you're like even more prepared to pay a lot more. And I think Prabhupada tells the story of this industrialist who, he started some plans and etc. and he started to fail. He's like on a deathbed, and he was like prepared to give doctor so much. Doctor, give me another 2 years. I need to finish this big thing. So then there's one thing.
Trying to buy some time. Yeah, that's one obvious one. Anyone else think it could refer to something else? Yeah.
I guess it's coming on from the addiction point. When people are addicted, then they sort of lose the sense of decency. So they'll quite often steal. Things can lead to you steal or you take other people's possessions in order to fuel your addiction. So similarly, just looking after the body is quite a self-centered thing, and you end up pushing people out the side.
Yeah, there's also another thing as well called sukriti, which is your pious merit. And there's also a possession that you take with you. They say the only thing worth taking with you when you die are your good acts. So you're prepared to sacrifice them as well. So that's a more of a kind of subtle possession. But yet you lose the sense of value, and you're prepared to sacrifice whatever it is, You'll sacrifice your level of morality, your integrity, relationships, people that are dependent upon you, even your own children, maybe you're prepared to sacrifice them, You see the Titanic's going down and you jump in the boat and the kids are still on the Titanic and you say, sorry, kids. So all these things could happen, because of fear. They say that the emotion which is the strongest that impels you to do the wrong thing is fear, not anger. Because you generally think, they say the three main emotions we get hit by that are negative are sadness, fear, and anger. And fear is the one that will drive you to do anything more even than anger, something that's fear-based. So this fear of death, unless you learn to deal with it, accommodate it, then you can find yourself doing anything practically because of the fear of death. Sacrifice your relationship with someone, the friendship with someone. That's fine. I'm more afraid of losing my life than afraid of losing anything else, which is very bad culture. Means very bad educational system. When it comes to the crunch, only I matter, as opposed to everybody else. Extrinsic versus intrinsic. What is more important? They've done these tests on children and they expose them to advertisements and they put them in a room with all these toys, and then one kid has a better toy than the other kids, and the kids are prepared to sacrifice their friendship with the other kids to get that toy. So these are some of the tests they're doing. kind of showing how it plays out. So we have a very bad educational system because it's actually not education, because educato means well-behaved, and they're encouraging the children not to be well-behaved, to be selfish and ambitious and utilize their God-given talents to exploit, to join others, to assist others that are already corporate industries which have perfected or trying to perfect the art of exploiting the material energy, so if you join us, we'll give you a big cut of the cake. And if you don't, well, tough luck. So you get the choice when you're a kid. Listen, you want to be intelligent? Then be a cheater. And that's what happened to me in school. I was Mr. Nightingale took us to the window in Stockport College. I was doing a foundation course in 1982. He says, have a look out the window there. What can you see? Don't know, sir. Suckers. And he said, there's only one good thing you can do with a sucker, and that's rip them off. That was advertising. That was the theory behind advertising. How to get people to want things they don't need. So the guy's going along the road, minding his own business, not caring in the world, and he sees a poster, and the poster implies that he's inferior unless he gets this product. So then he goes away, psychologically traumatized by this image that he has to get it. It's a glamour image. And Berger was a Russian philosopher, and he said, the glamour image, its peak propelling power is in the anticipation of the sense gratification. So the guy's got the pint of beer and he's just like that, and the head's all fluffy. Now, if you saw him when he's gone like that, and it's just his dregs on the bottom, and everyone's like, because we all know what it feels like when you finish them. But the idea of this could be amazing, the eternal bliss is going to come any minute, and it is. So it's the anticipation, and so the educational system is teaching people, okay, listen, don't be a dumbo, don't get cheated, go out and cheat everybody else before they get a chance to cheat you. So they all come out and they're all ready to rip off their fellow man who's just a sucker.
This interesting point about, who is prepared to deliver his body even if it's demanded by Lord Vishnu. So, in one sense, or in the ultimate sense, Krishna is asking us for our body, mind, and soul.
Yeah.
He wants everything. Nothing less than everything. And I mean, it is a bit scary, but actually when you see a pure devotee, it's fully there, is already body, mind, and soul, fully sold out, is very happy. But, from this material ego and addiction point of view, to lose the point of your addiction and give it to somebody else is the last thing you want to do. It's very scary.
I hope this is depressing everybody. Well, depending on how selfless you are will determine how depressed you get. So you may think, okay, I need to shift here. I need to shift into a different gear because I can't cope with it with my present mental strategy. So I'm going to have to change. It's a lot easier to change yourself than to change others. And Krishna consciousness can be practiced reactively or proactively. So proactive practice of Krishna consciousness, I'm going to work on myself. I'm going to be principle orientated. And it won't matter how anybody else in the environment reacts or behaves or how much they take on the philosophy or apply it. I'm just focusing on myself, So, but it is a tall order. And, we're not making any bones about it. It's not like we're just saying, yeah, say Hare Krishna and you're saved. You're shaved. You can be bold again. We're not saying that. We're saying you can engage in this process, and if you do it properly, you will achieve success. But if, Krishna says, if you become conscious of me, he doesn't say, you'll automatically be conscious of me. He says, if you'll become conscious of me. So that's the deciding factor. Will we make the if? What will we do with the if when we realize, when we're feeling a bit iffy ourselves? If you become conscious of me, Krishna says, then that's fine. But will you connect with me when you're chanting? Can you feel my presence when you're chanting? If you can't, then you still need to chant better. And if you can, then you'll want to chant better anyway, you know. So, yeah, it is. And to that point, the Prabhupada Prana made yesterday was nice, that we're giving our body, we're offering our body to Krishna in the form of service. We're giving our youth, our energy, everything, we're offering it at Krishna's lotus feet. And the longer you do it, the less you regret it. When you look back, you think, I'm so glad. I just wish I'd started earlier. I wish someone had come around the school when I was 11 and told me what the regular principles were. It would have saved me a lot of time and energy. Because as soon as I read them, I thought, yeah, that makes sense, you know. It immediately clicked. Chanting as well, when I heard that we should chant, it was like, okay, let's try this, you know. So imagine if we were going around. So the only regret looking back are the times that I didn't surrender. You never regret when you surrender. You only regret when you don't. So, and at the time of death, you'll look back on your life, and that's when you'll really feel glad that you have sacrificed and given everything. Because at that time, it won't be so attractive. You see, generally when the soul leaves the body, he leaves because the body is in so much pain. It's like you could leave your body right now if you wanted to. You just don't leave the body right now because you're not in enough pain. But when the body's in enough pain, you find out quick enough how to get out the body. You do know how to get out the body, but you won't remember it until you're in a lot of pain. Then you know, okay, there's the hatch. Get it out. I'm getting out of here. This is just too much, you know. So the better thing would be to just learn how to do that before, you know. And when you feel the body starting to go down and your life is leaving you, you know exactly where to go. When Srila Prabhupada left his body, he said, Hare Krishna. He left his body out of his mouth, which is the Vaishnava way of leaving the body, not through the ear or through the eyes. These are also auspicious, but they can be very painful as well. But straight out of the mouth, straight back to Goloka. Any other questions or comments? Yeah, Panchatattva Prabhu.
So he's going back to this, you're talking about anarthas earlier. Why, when we practice devotional service, do we go through... I understand the process of anartha nivritti is going on. Then why is it much stronger at some times? At other times, we seem to be doing great. Is it really because we've acted in a way that's caused us to receive certain reactions, or is it just sort of more out of our control?
Well, there's a few things. One thing that could be going on is that because Krishna is very kind, he doesn't let you see all the anarthas in one go. He gives you one anartha at a time. Otherwise, you'd be like, oh no, I can never do it, no. So he just kind of rakes it to you gently. You know that thing about being a pure devotee? Well, what about this? Oh, yeah. Well, okay, then I can work on that one. And then you get rid of it. Now I've got rid of it. Now I'm a pure devotee. No, there's another one. And as you go on, it gets more subtle. And also, they say when you're in a river, the current flows fastest at the edge of the river. So when you're in the middle of the river, you don't even feel the current. You're just kind of drifting along. Everything seems fine. When you start trying to get out, just towards the end of you getting out the river, then it speeds up. The flow speeds up, and you need an extra push to actually pull yourself out of the river. And there's a certain momentum as well that we've built up. And that's like a G-force, and it takes a certain level of intensity to break through from that. And then it has to be sustained. It has to be enthusiasm, confidence, and then there needs to be patience. It needs to be sustained. And that's the tricky part for devotees, is they can do it like in spurts, sporadically. It's called Vayuddha Vikalpa. It's sporadic endeavor. They can do it, but they're thinking, I don't mind, doing a marathon for 30 minutes, but goodness me, you know, the whole day, every day, for a month. So, and even then we only do the marathon for a little period of time, because to sustain that over a long period of time would be difficult. That's the whole idea with the marathon, is you're doing something which is a push, and then you can relax back. But when you relax back, you've gone a little bit further than you had if you hadn't done the marathon, you know. And in this way, we nudge ourselves bit by bit towards Krishna. But there's 6 forms of unsteady devotional service, and one of them is Vayuddha Vikalpa. Oh, that may be mental vacillation, actually. But the sporadic endeavor, mental vacillation, Taranga Ranjani, enjoying the because when you start doing devotional service, you start becoming better at chatting and enamoring people and looking cool and wearing your chudda so that you look like a Himalayan sage. And you start thinking, I'm pretty cool, actually. So then these little weeds start growing, you know, and you're thinking, I'm actually a cool sage, you know, and they start to strangle. They cause the devotional service to be unsteady. So your sporadic endeavor, 1 minute into it, the next minute totally fried, totally into it, totally fried, and then after a while it starts to smooth out. And then you start to just be able to maintain a steady level of devotional service and a steady level of Krishna consciousness. And that's when you're coming into the Majjhima platform. And the Majjhimas are especially good at preaching, because when you're a Majjhima, you can see who the devotee is, who the non-devotee is, who the envious are, and you can see how Krishna is helping, how Krishna is with you all the time. Jai. ISKCON Guru in the key. Srila Prabhupada ki. Go to Premanandi. Hari Bol.
Jai.
Go to Bhaktivinoda ki. Jai.